Another day, another pretty disastrous poll for President Donald Trump. This time when it comes to the economy, when it comes to affordability. Nearly half of all Americans and a third of Republicans say that everyday expenses for them have now become even more difficult to manage under this current administration. A significant portion of that is laying the blame at the feet of this administration, who happens to control all of government. So kind of makes sense. They're running everything. Okay, they control the House, they control the Senate, they control the White House, they control the courts. So whose fault is it? No, it must be the Democrats. Of course. But people aren't buying it. According to the latest Axios Vibes survey conducted by the Harris poll, 47% of Americans say that groceries are harder to afford compared to just a year ago, with 19% saying that they're cheaper somehow, and 34% saying they're about the same. You all paying attention? Well, it's not going to surprise you that when you break it down by political affiliation, 34% of Republicans, 50% of Democrats, and 54% of independent voters agree that groceries have become more expensive since September of last year. What's up with the rest of the Republicans? Are they somehow living in a place that has cheaper groceries than the rest of us? Or are they just not paying attention? Because it's certainly nowhere near me. Everything's more expensive. Inflation, not down. Inflation is up. Prices are up. Like, for example, two of the things that I love, beef and coffee, okay, they have risen. The prices of them have risen dramatically in the last few months. It's very difficult to afford a roll of hamburger these days, and steaks, forget it. I haven't had a steak in so long. Now, of course, some of these increases, to be fair, have been influenced by external factors, and it's not all squarely Donald Trump's fault. Again, I'm being super fair here, right? I'm not like the Republicans who be like, everything's the fault of Joe Biden and the radical left. No, there are some things that are the fault of, well, not the party that is in power, okay? But there are some things that are. Look, Trump, he did promise to lower grocery prices day one, and he did not deliver. Axios notes that 8 in 10 Americans, though, believe an incumbent president has significant influence over the health of the U.S. economy. Yes, but he still can't. No president can wave a wand and say, cheap gas or cheap steaks, okay? That's not the reality of the situation. They can do things, yes, but it also is incumbent upon Congress, and there is also external factors, yada, 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 right? That said, for most people, the buck stops with Trump, okay? Or the president himself. And again, there were a lot of people that blamed Biden as well for things that he couldn't control. And so I'm being totally fair about that. That said, the Harris poll surveyed 2,093 U.S. adults between September 11th and 13th, 65% of whom say that they feel financial pressure each month. I'm right there with you. I also feel that pressure. Among those facing difficulties, 37% blame the current administration, 20% of Republicans, 38% of independents, and 48% of Democrats. Roughly 32% of the group and larger shares of Republicans attribute this to business or personal decisions. Because, of course, they're not going to put any of the blame on their orange messiah or anything, and his policies, even when they are contributing to making their lives more difficult. Less than 1 in 3 believe that Trump's tariffs have had a positive effect, though, on the economy, businesses, or their finances. And 63% are concerned about product shortages as a result of the president's duties. That's right. We've been lucky so far in the fact that there was a lot of inventory that was stored up, okay, before Trump came to office. But that inventory has been slowly running out. And because of the tariffs, importing these things is going to be either more expensive or almost impossible. And so, yes, we are going to run out of things. Look, these kitchen table issues are a major problem, no matter what political party is in charge. Okay, kitchen table issues are often the number one issues that voters are concerned about. And so, look, a lot of Trump's voters this time around just happen to have been people who are making less than $50,000 a year. And you have counties that, look, you had counties that were relatively worse off in terms of unemployment, poverty, and median household income that were likely to choose Trump in the election. They were more likely, okay? And they did so because of a lot of his bullshit promises that he has not delivered on. Oh, I'm going to lower grocery prices. Day one. Didn't happen. Now, according to an AP NORC poll from mid-2025, 53% of American adults now considered grocery expenses as a major source of stress, with 33% considering these a minor issue. Oh, well, that must be nice. I'd love to consider that a minor issue. Among the lowest income households, 64% cited grocery prices as a significant stressor, and only 2 in 10 of the highest income category, those earning $100,000 or more, said grocery prices were not a concern. Must be nice. Again, must be nice. There's more. A Gallup poll conducted in early September revealed that overall economic confidence remains low, although certainly not record lows, to be fair. The economic confidence index currently stands at negative 20, with 28% rating current economic conditions as positive, and 68% saying that they are getting worse. Now, this compares to an index score of negative 28 in September of last year, up from a Biden-era low of negative 58 in June of 2022. Confidence is bad. Not as bad as it could be, but it ain't great. And it's probably going to drop further if nothing changes. And look, with Republicans completely in charge, people are starting to know who to blame. A September Signal poll showed that 39.6% of Americans now hold Republicans responsible for rising inflation. Now, 36.5% still somehow blame Democrats for that, even though they have not been in power. And when they were, by the way, again, they didn't control the entirety of the government. That poll, of course, marked a stark turnaround from this time last year, when 46.3% blamed Democrats and only 25.5% blamed Republicans. Again, I can imagine those numbers getting worse if things do not improve. And I don't see them improving. John Grisham, CEO of the Harris poll, per Axios, said of this result, quote, "It's such a visible signal that life today is harder than it was even last year when we were in an election cycle." Grisham said of grocery bills, "Respondents don't feel like things are changing fast enough. This is going to be a significant issue for the president." I got to ask, is it though? I mean, it's not like Trump can run again, even though he keeps talking about it. Oh yeah, Trump 2028, right? Well, he's barred from running again. So that means that if he tanks the economy, tanks this country, and the Republican Party, leaves it a smoking ruin, you think he's going to give a damn? No, of course not. Of course not. That said, he did manage to lie a lot during his address to the UN General Assembly. And he did so while claiming that energy costs are down, which they're not. In fact, in some areas of the country, because of the widespread use of AI data centers promoted by this administration, energy prices in some of those areas have increased by 267%. So energy is not down at all. Gasoline, not down. I haven't seen, he keeps talking about this, oh, gas is $1.99. Where? In your freaking dreams? In your fantasies? Somewhere in your spank bank? I don't know. But it ain't in the real world. Grocery prices are down. No, they're not. Mortgage rates are down. That's because you finally got Jerome Powell. You screwed the economy so bad that the Federal Reserve finally lowered interest rates, which saves you money on your loans. Of course. So, he was right about that one. And he also added that inflation has been defeated. Defeated! The only thing that's up is the stock market, which just hit a record high. The stock market is not the economy. The stock market, as of right now, is wholly divorced from reality. Okay? And pretty much everything else is not true. He did not defeat inflation. It's going up. According to trading economic forecasts, the annual inflation rate is expected to hit 3% for September. That is up from 2.9% in August. That's an increase. That's far from defeating inflation. No. And by the way, that is on top of all the inflation that has taken place since COVID had hit. Okay? Now, the rate of inflation actually did go down for a while under Joe Biden. But that doesn't mean that prices went down. That's just the rate of the price increases. Okay? So prices still went up. They just went up slower. And by the way, a lot of the inflation that we've seen during COVID and afterwards, that's mainly been a result of corporate greed. It is about half of it was greedflation. You had CEOs in Zoom calls admitting that, yeah, we didn't have to raise prices, but we took advantage. We took advantage. And, we raised our prices. We called it inflation, even though our costs didn't actually go up. And we just pocketed the difference. And they'll never know, even though we're literally admitting it on camera. We're just going to blame Joe Biden. That's it. We're going to blame workers that got a $600 stimmy check. Okay? We're going to blame them for the inflation. It's their fault, not ours. Even though we profited massively from it and are continuing to do so. Look, Joe Biden, to be fair, Biden and the Democrats could have tried to do something to rein that in. Rein in that greedflation. Okay? They didn't. And look, maybe there wasn't anything that they could do about that. Although they could have tried to, for example, raised wages to try to help families make enough money to offset those costs. Okay? But, they didn't do anything. Maybe, again, they didn't realize that they could do anything. I don't know. But on the same vein, perhaps that means that there's nothing that Donald Trump could do. Or nothing that Trump wants to do. But he can do something. Lie. And that's what he's doing right now. He's lying and trying to gaslight all of us into believing that our current financial reality isn't reality at all. Okay? And I'm sorry, but I just don't think that is going to work. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share, subscribe, hit the bell icon in order to get notified whenever a new video is released. And if you want to support independent, progressive media through this difficult time where it seems like everybody is shutting down, you can become a member on our YouTube page, you can become a subscriber on Facebook, or you can go to my Patreon. It's patreon.com/Jeff Waldorf. Thank you.